I'm Jayshree Bhat, and it's such a pleasure for me to introduce my friend, physician, and philanthropist, Dr. Madhavi Reddy, who I have been friends with for over 2 decades. I've seen her grow as a professional, as a person, and admired her. And in so many ways, I've been inspired by you as well, with all the things that you do, despite being such a busy physician, having a family to take care of, and despite all of that, you make time for community service. And more than anything else, one of the things that you do that I am just completely in awe of is the annual expeditions that you take with
Surgical Eye Expeditions International.
Sea International, right? And I know that you've been doing it for over 15 years, is it? Yes, and I do remember, and I do recall the first time that you mentioned that to me, and I believe you were going to Africa, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, and I do recall the first question that I asked you was, "My gosh, that's so far away." And I said, "Are you sure you want to do this? Is it safe?" I had a plethora of questions, right? But having come from India all the way to the United States, both of us should understand that the globe now is a small place, and people are not very different from one country to the other. Yes, they might have different set of belief systems. They might have a different type of worldview because of the exposure that they've had. But world is a very small place, and you reassured me at that point by letting me know that this is something that you want to do for the world because you've spent so many years learning, and this is your time to give back. So having said that, I know that a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step, and that was a single step that took you on this amazing journey. How many countries have you visited so far?
Oh my goodness, maybe I should count. Probably at least 10 to 15.
10 to 15?
Yeah.
Yes, but before we go into that type of discussion, I want to learn a little bit about your background that prompted you to be who you are today and be the person that you are today. Such a giving person, you draw a lot of satisfaction from giving back to not just the community that you're part of, but also the global community. I want to hear about that.
It's not all altruism. I get a lot out of
course.
Yeah. So the way I get satisfaction out of this is really, first trip I went to give, and I actually found out that I received much more than what I gave, and that really hooked me. Yeah. So next year it was another country, another place, another language, another culture, and it's like once you start, there's no stopping it.
Right.
If anything, at this stage of my life, I feel that it's not going to be just one trip in a year.
Yeah.
But my dream
You're going
is
to be doing more of those.
Yes, to do 6 months here and 6 months elsewhere.
I see.
And to be specific, in Africa.
Let's talk about where you work, right? You have a clinic where you perform eye surgeries. You're an ophthalmologist, and you practice in a city called Brownsville, Texas, which is very close to the border. And today we're sitting here at this beautiful South Padre Island, which is about 20 minutes from your home.
Yes.
Where you have a condo as well. And on a beautiful winter day, January the 10th or 12th, 2020, on a beautiful afternoon where it's 75 degrees, right?
Yes.
But sometimes you give up such beautiful days to go and provide this much needed service in remote parts of the world where you don't know what the weather is going to be like, right?
It's true. But come to think about it, most places that need this kind of service are all around the equator. And it's really not a surprise because cataract, which is the most common cause of treatable blindness in the world, happens around the equator.
Interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah,
Huh.
because of sunlight, exposure
I
to
see.
sunlight.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yes. So most of the time it's they're beautiful days, but we don't see much of daylight.
Right.
Because
So walk us through it. Walk us through a typical day in an eye camp where you provide surgical services and other services to, would it be safe to say indigent population or population that may not have access to such medical care in those regions, right? To walk us through a typical day.
Yeah. In fact, our work starts about 3 to 4 months before the actual mission.
I see.
So I get in touch with Sea International, then pick a place and talk to someone who's been there before, and make a list of all the things that I need. And we get them either by donations or by borrowing, or sometimes I just buy them. And we start packing up. I usually take about 3 to 5 suitcases full of supplies. First day is always unpacking. So we go inspect the site. Sometimes it's just hospital or a clinic, or it can just be a building that needs to be cleaned, and then we set out all our supplies out, and then we figure out how to do the patient flow. This is the area where patients are going to wait. This is the place where they're going to be worked up, and then here will be surgery and all those things, setting up tables, setting up our sterilizing equipment. And most of the time we're there with a team, and none of us really know each other.
So it's a team of people that come together to accomplish a common mission
from different parts of the world.
Yeah, and different expertise as well, correct?
Yes. They're nurses, they're doctors, they're technicians, they're optometrists, and they're just regular
volunteers,
people. Yes,
right?
Who are volunteering
line
their
up people,
time.
get them there.
Right.
So how do you overcome so many different type of fears of going into a place like that? It's not just being in a foreign country. It's not just about the language. It's not about overcoming the fear about people. But you're also going to be working with a group of professionals like yourself that come from different walks of life, different backgrounds, different belief system. But how did you overcome that fear the first time that you went on that trip?
The first trip, actually, I remember very well. It was Dr. Ken Miller, who was my mentor and the senior ophthalmologist on the mission through Sea International. And he showed me the ropes. So he showed me, don't be shy of asserting your authority. You're going to be the team leader, which I had trouble with before I went on these trips. But now I know how to exercise my authority and still be friendly and coordinate everything and be firm and still get everything done and be respectful.
You learn something through the process, right?
Yes.
So how about once you're there, you perform the surgeries. Yes, some days can be really grueling because you're working in conditions that are not very sterile. There are lots of conditions that are beyond your control. To have the optimum environment that you create here in the US when you perform those surgeries. But what is it that really makes you keep going back?
Yes, I mean, long hours, like you said, and the long checklist that we have to go through and make sure all the procedures are followed. But it's what happens the day after surgery. So first day we pick patients, we screen them, and we prep them, process them, do surgery, and the next day morning, the first thing we do is they all line up sitting on the benches with one eye patch.
I see.
And we remove the patch. When you see their faces and hear what their responses are, that is the reason that we go back for more again and again.
That moment of realization that you've actually given the gift of eyesight to somebody who didn't have it.
Yeah, it makes a huge impact. It changes their life.
Right.
For example, if it's a young man, he can start a new life.
Absolutely.
If it's a
function as others do. There was this one, experience that you had shared with me that really has stayed in my mind. you talked about this lady that you had performed the surgery on. Tell me more about that.
We always say doing surgery
Yeah.
on even an older person, like for example, the lady we talked about, she was a grandmother. However, it was 2 lives saved. So when you make that older person see what happens in these places, they don't have guide dogs. They don't, and the environment is not safe enough for the blind person to go out on their own. So they recruit one of the grandchildren to be their guides. So this child cannot go to school, cannot play. And
they get trapped in some ways.
Yes, they're like bonded labor.
So it's like disrupting the lives of 2 people. Yes.
And when you do surgery on someone like that, you save
it
2
multiplies.
lives.
Yes.
Yeah.
The benefits multiply as well.
And then I started dressing them one by one. So once we know why we want to do these trips, the second thing is to do our homework, like what place are we going to go? First thing I do is I just open the Wikipedia and read everything about that country. Then I look at the weather. Then I look at what are the possible health hazards. And then I call someone who has been to that country on such a mission to see what were the challenges that they faced. That way I am ready. And the last thing I do is I talk to the other members of our new team or the potential team. That way I'm on the same page. It's important for what our agenda is. In the last 15 years, I have worked with all kinds of people and with all kinds of agenda. So I have become pretty good at reading people to see why are they doing this, is it okay? And also to keep an open mind, because things change, they're not static. The conditions change and unexpected things happen, and how are we going to deal with them? And I'm not afraid to assert my authority as a team leader. And if there is a patient who really wants the surgery, but it's not a good indication. For example, if I feel the risk of the surgery is too high and the benefit is going to be too low, I will take the risk of disappointing them and say, I don't think we can do a very good job in this kind of a situation. So it's best not to do the surgery. Like the Hippocratic oath that we take before entering medical school or before entering medical practice, first do no harm. I take that very seriously. We're there to do good, but first do no harm.
I can clearly see that you have gained so much from all these experiences. How has it changed the way you do your practice or you do your work here where you have your clinical practice? Over the years, what are you bringing back with you other than lots of these memorabilia that you've shared with me, right? I mean, look at all these beautiful faces.
I know. This one is from Ethiopia.
Oh, wow.
Yes, different faces of Ethiopia.
Beautiful faces that you've touched, literally. And, what are some of those, lessons learned or best practice ideas that you walked away with that you have begun to apply to your practice or the way you work with your team? I know that you own your own practice with other partners as well. So how has it changed the way you do your work here?
Oh, first time when I came back from my first mission trip, I went to my operating room and I wanted to fall on the floor and kiss it. It was so clean and so perfect.
Yes.
And it also reinforces the fact how lucky and how fortunate we are to be in this country where the health services are really the best in the world. And
the conditions in which you perform those services are probably the best in the world. A lot more controlled.
Both ways. I mean, either for a patient or for the physician or surgeon too.
Yeah.
Because the surgeons and physicians in other countries, they work under such limitations. And they don't have enough supplies, they don't have enough equipment, or they're so overwhelmed, understaffed. And here, we are really fortunate. And that also reinforces the fact that I must share what I have.
Yes.
And we have access to such continuing medical education. And if I have a question, all I have to do is call a specialist up and they'll give me an answer or a recommendation, which is not possible for ophthalmologists in the rest of the world, or at least in the developing world.
Yes, in the developing world where you've been on these expeditions. So what I'm also interested in knowing is, what do you want to do in the future that you haven't done before? And in what way do you want to contribute, or do you want to continue to contribute to the global population that you have served all these years through these trips that you've made? Tell us how you want to do things different going forward.
First, with all this experience behind me, what I want to do now is work less in the United States and work more. And in fact, I've picked my continent, Africa.
I see.
Rwanda, Ethiopia, and Liberia are on my 2020 map.
I see.
Of places to go and work. And not only just do cataract surgeries, I want to focus more on training young physicians there, young surgeons. Because their training programs are not very structured and they don't have enough attendings or teaching materials. So right now, that's what I'm focusing on, training and
education. Right? Education. So also, as someone who has given so much back, what are some of the things that you're gaining that has made you a better person, individually as well? Professionally, we talked about it, right?
Yes.
What is it that you're gaining from these experiences? Obviously, every time you go to these trips, you're gaining something that's a lot more than what's visible to the eye. What is it? How has your perspective or the worldview has changed over the years as a result of these trips that you've made and the exposure that you've had?
Like I said earlier, I am much more grateful, much more aware of my blessings. And second, it brings me to my mind a particular phrase we have in our Constitution, pursuit of happiness.
I see.
So all these trips have been in pursuit of my happiness, the personal part of it. And so many little things that used to bother me before, they don't anymore, because they're put in the larger perspective.
More conditions.
And another thing that I've noticed is the line that I had drawn around me or my family, it has expanded. It has expanded. In fact, the other day someone said, "What's your specialty?" I said, "I'm a global ophthalmologist."
So, now you can actually say that because of all the the work that you've done over the years in so many different parts of the world. I find myself being so inspired every time you come back from your trips and the beautiful pictures that you bring back with you, not just of the environment, but of the people, and the gratitude that I see in their eyes when in those pictures of someone being touched by someone who has made such a difference in their life, altruistically. Yes, you might have said, I gain a lot more from that as well, but what you're giving to the world is priceless, or giving to people of the world where they don't have access to such services is just priceless. Look at all these beautiful faces, right? I mean, amazing. You're leaving behind, in some ways, you're leaving behind a piece of yourself when you come back, correct?
It is.
Yes.
I actually carry pieces of them inside me too. In fact, now I have friends. When I think of a country,
colleagues who are spread out all over the world as well, not just patients that you've served, right?
Exactly, yeah. Colleagues, and there's one. I met this Polish ophthalmologist, Rafal, on our trip to Peru, Huamachuco in the Andes. And someone asked him, actually, I brought up the topic, Rafal, this is such hard work. Why are you here?
Yeah.
Why are you doing this? Yeah. He says, I know, Madhavi, this is hard work, but if I don't do this, it will be harder.
I see.
And I completely agreed with him. Yes, I think some of us have realized, or maybe have overcome our fears and hesitation of going out of our comfort zone to do these things.
Yes.
Obviously, we're capable of whatever
Yes.
we're
Right.
able to do, whether, again, like you said, medical or non-medical. And once you cross that line, it is all gain.
Yes.
No loss at all.
Personal gain that only people who have actually put themselves in such experiences would understand what that personal gain is, right?
Yes.
It's not something that's tangible to others, but it's tangible to you because you have, you've become a better person. I've seen you over the years evolve into this person that's so much more calmer about lots of things and, a lot more, I see a lot of gratitude in your actions and your words as well. And that could not have come from just being, living in this place and, being part of your practice and living your life. It has come from all of those amazing experiences that you've had of, visiting people, seeing people from all walks of life and seeing the gratitude in their eyes. I'm sure that fills your heart with a lot of gratitude as well, right? And then you bring back things like this.
Of course.
Tell me a little bit about this.
Oh my goodness. This basket brings it takes me back all the way to Ghana, West Africa.
I see.
So I had worked with Margaret,
so
the
beautiful.
nurse. It is.
Handmade, right?
Yes, hand-woven.
Look at that.
And
And it's so sturdy as well.
It is.
Yes.
It is very useful. So Margaret was a nurse at the government hospital that I had gone to do. Actually, that trip was to take care of diabetic retinopathy.
I see.
I had carried a laser with me to do lasers in diabetic retinopathy patients. And I told this nurse in the afternoon, I'm going to finish early, and I would like to go to the market and buy a basket like this. And so she took me, we didn't find any baskets, we came back, and next day I had gone to work and she was off. So when I came back to my hotel, this was in my hotel room. Yeah, in fact, two of those baskets.
I see.
And she even put a bottle of champagne, and then she wasn't sure.
Yeah.
And then so she put a bottle of non-alcoholic champagne as well.
Just so that she's covered her bases.
Exactly. So every time I see that,
yes,
it just brings me back.
Absolutely.
Yeah, or takes me back.
So if you want to tell someone who is watching us today, if you want to tell them, one piece of advice that you want them to walk away with, as a ophthalmologist, as a person, tell me.
I know that's a difficult one, to put it into a summary. What I would say is find your passion. Find your passion and step out of your comfort zone to pursue that. Because when you do those two things, your life becomes so meaningful, and it not only adds to our happiness, but it actually has a big effect on people around us. You not only make yourself comfortable where you are,
and you'll find this new joy as well.
Yes, exactly. And I had underestimated that effect, that how much of a positive effect it has on people around you.
Absolutely.
To step out of their circles that they have drawn tightly around them and try new things and just go out there and expand
live your life, expand your horizon, right?
Yes,
absolutely. Thank you so much for sitting down and talking to me today. Although I've heard these stories before and your experiences, it was almost like reliving some of them. I really enjoyed talking to you.
It's a pleasure, Jayshree. Anytime.